Welcome back. You're watching News9 with me, Shweta Kothari and Kartikeya Sharma, who's going to be back in just a short while from now. We're tracking the details of the India-EU trade agreement, the free trade agreement that has now been concluded. The signing ceremony is going to be beginning in just a short while from now at 1:15, which is 1:15. We'll also get the details of the fine print as to what India and EU have finally arrived at. On the show with me is Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, former ambassador to WTO, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, as well as Professor Swaran Singh and Air Commodore Bahel. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for staying put. I want to come to you, Ambassador Bhatia. You know, before we went into break, we were also talking about the gains for India's IT and services sector. And you know, some of the impediments, as Kartikeya pointed out, could be by the way of mobility rules, visa caps, data localization laws. And many experts are of the view that many of these hindrances could blunt the gains that India's IT and services sector will make, at least in the interim. Do you believe that perhaps when the details emerge, India would have been able to carve out some sort of agreement with the EU when it comes to some of these challenges? And what, in your assessment, could be the biggest impediment?
Well, I think we can expect some liberalization of mobility in terms of what we call the Mode 4 movement of professionals. And this relates to professionals of all kinds, not only IT, but for instance, paramedicals. That is an increasing number of paramedicals from India seeking employment abroad. So I think there will be some liberalization on that. But I think I would like to flag again one important issue, which is about data security. And I think it is important for the two sides to thresh out their differences on the data protection laws in the European Union and in India to find common ground so that India is declared a data secure country by the European Union. And once that happens, I think we can expect a much more significant increase in services related to digital flows. Beyond that, I think the question is that the European Union, because of its demographics, requires skilled professionals. Now, there are, of course, issues relating to immigration in all countries. But it is important to define the terms and conditions of temporary movement of skilled professionals from India to the European Union. Let me also say that the outsourcing model that Indian IT companies have followed for at least 2 decades, I think because of technological changes, that is being recast. And to that extent, the movement of IT professionals is not so determinative as it used to be in the past. But beyond IT, I think there are a number of other fields where skilled professionals need to move. And I'm confident that this FTA will have provisions, liberalized provisions for such movements.
You know, I have to also come to Professor Swaran Singh at this point. Your final word on one or two key sectors that have been left out, that include, as we mentioned earlier, discussed earlier, agriculture, poultry, and dairy sector. Now, these are crucial sectors, but they also need some sort of modernization. While what we saw in the last decade was government trying to modernize and reform these sectors by the way of the 3 farm laws, which had to be eventually rolled back. Without getting into politics of it, we need to modernize our agri-exports and integrate them into high value chain. Do you think we're also missing out on an opportunity here by the way of keeping these sectors out? I know they're politically sensitive. I know, you know, those are sectors you can't easily touch in India because there's so much of hullabaloo that will come into force that would perhaps, you know, undermine the efforts that India has made towards finalizing this trade deal. But, you know, it's like we're giving up very easy on some of these sectors that need modernization, that need reforms.
Perfectly right, Shweta. You partly answered yourself. That's a complex question of modernizing India's agricultural sector of farms or dairy or related sectors. And partly one cannot compromise on those areas in terms of giving them a push or nudge to go out of their comfort sector, because they are a large vote bank for any political party in this country. But that cannot be the way India will grow if it has to become the third largest economy. That sector is a major sector that will need a major disruption, maybe incrementally. And therefore, I think this working together with various European countries, which some of them have leading positions in agriculture production, in dairy, and so on, could perhaps give certain advantage in transfer of technology, skill development, in terms of input improvements at various levels. But yes, that's not an option that India cannot really modernize its agricultural sector. That has to happen so that the traditional model of economic development would be that ultimately manufacturing has to go up and the tertiary sectors have to really be the leading contributors to India's GDP growth. And that will happen over a period of time is what is being underlined here. Gradually, some concessions are being made, will be made in coming times, and technology transfers, best practices, etc., will be shared. But that is where we are saying that some of these sectors will take longer period of time to build those partnerships with the European Union.
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, come to think of it, economically, Karthik, and as well as Professor Singh, I think it's a sector that's the backbone of India's economy, which should have seen some sort of modernization early on and hasn't seen it so far yet because of how politically sensitive it is. So I think, you know, it's a very fine balancing act there, and also something that we need to figure out how to do it right. Professor Swaran Singh, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out, you know, for joining us on that very crucial story. Just 10 minutes from now, that signing in ceremony will happen.
You know, before we do that, we are also joined by Major General Sudhakar ji. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. Your opening comments. In next 10 minutes, there's going to be a special briefing where Prime Minister and the Commissioner of EU will be present. There's going to be a special briefing by the Foreign Secretary at 4:30, given the importance of this visit. Your opening comments, sir.
It's a force multiplying golden milestone as far as India's economy is concerned. And it's a irreversible, progressive, forward-looking roadmap opening up India's way, and it will have a significant contribution towards India's long-term goal of $30 trillion by 2047 earlier.
Absolutely, absolutely. But sir, you know, when we were discussing about the issues, we also discussed about challenges. You know, before the briefing starts. You know, Ambassador Bhatia, you know, this question I kept it for you. You know, sir, I spoke about a number of issues. You know, in this Industrial Accelerator Act, which is expected to be proposed in January this year, is likely to introduce local content norms. Now, Shweta was talking about it. So, in terms of such nitty-gritties, you know, in terms of such nitty-gritties, how long do you think that India will take to be prepared to meet all these norms? Because in short run, I don't think it's possible, sir.
I think India has the adaptability to work its way around it. I don't think that is going to be such a major issue. As far as local content requirements are concerned, of course, we have to be very careful because of WTO rules. But there are ways in which measures can be designed to avoid violation of WTO rules. But I think it is important that for various strategic and security reasons that we develop key industries in India regardless of the cost involved. This is important for our security as well as in terms of supply chain resilience. We found during the COVID pandemic, for instance, how global supply chains were totally disrupted, and the global rules were helpless in resolving these issues. So we need to have our own capabilities in key sectors, and I think there are ways of doing it without being in conflict.